Hello, this is the LHS journalism staff, and today we are interviewing Melissa Johnson, who is an AP literature teacher, and we're going to ask her questions about unique things that have affected AP classes during this transition to online learning. So welcome, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you. Hi.
So what are some unique challenges you faced from going from, teaching in your class to transitioning to teaching over Zoom?
Uh, um, I had to learn how, like what Zoom was, first of all. And then let's see, I am someone who feels like I very much need a schedule and to know what's going to happen. And so this was very difficult for me to have to sort of go with the flow. And, sometimes I would get conflicting information and that drove me crazy, even though it's no one's fault, it's just unprecedented. So that was hard for me, is to go from my carefully controlled world to feeling like, oh, I don't have control over anything. I got it.
So you mentioned that there are some mixed messages about grading. And
Yeah,
just
I hope I don't get in trouble for saying that.
can you clarify how students in AP classes will be graded and how they can make up missing work?
Yeah. So what was interesting was the message that went district-wide was about how grading worked in general, which was that students who were passing classes, could choose to stop at third quarter. But there was this sentence about how KU Blueprint and AP classes were an exception. And for a while, there was a lot of uncertainty over in what way AP would be an exception. And so actually, as it turns out, what they ultimately decided was that AP is not, in fact, an exception. And so they'll be graded the same way as other classes. Now KU classes are the only exception because they have to follow the syllabus that KU provides.
So I know you are really big on like having your schedule and being very organized. And
Yeah.
so I was wondering, is there any content in your class that you will not be able to cover that you wish you could, or how have you adapted your schedule to fit this time constraint?
I feel pretty good. I actually am not cutting anything. I figured I would. We're just going to do a way condensed version. And luckily, we're doing, it just lended itself in my class with a poetry unit and Shakespeare. So we can just kind of, I don't know, do a much smaller version. I'm having students watch Shakespeare on their own, or we could possibly have a Zoom movie night where like I would share my screen and everyone would watch it. I'm excited about that possibility. So we're just getting creative, finding ways around it, I guess. But yeah, I didn't have to cut anything.
Are you concerned about students disengaging from your class?
Yes and no. It is a little strange. What, like, people who weren't in my class today, for example, I don't know if it's because they didn't, like they're just done. I'm not sure, and I would like to know that for sure. If they're like, up, taking my third quarter, I'm out, or if they, there was a mix-up or if their internet was down. Like, that's a little strange. I just don't know why they might not have come, and I feel a little detached in a way that I don't in the classroom, if that makes sense. But I don't know. Otherwise, it's okay. So.
So is the school providing any information to you about which seniors have decided to graduate early or if they've dropped their class at all?
I don't think the school knows that yet. They're asking us for information, like we're taking attendance, and then we're supposed to like follow up with students who don't come to our classes today, like email or call, and just to see, like not to pressure them or badger them, but just to reach out and because we really want as many people to take advantage of fourth quarter as possible, but of course we can't force anyone.
So these past 2 days of online learning, how has that gone for you, and what has it been like to interact with students again?
Well, it's been wonderful to see students again, and I have felt increasingly less awkward. I mean, still awkward because that's me, but less awkward than yeah. And it's a little strange trying to adapt the rapport, to make it fit online, but for the most part, it's been really great, even though it's not quite the same.
All right, so I'm going to transition a little bit more to the exam. So are you concerned about preparing for your students now that the exam has kind of changed?
Well, I feel really lucky because I've given my two AP classes two mock exams already. We did one first semester, and then we did one second semester. And that's the earliest I've ever done it. And it's because the registration deadline was earlier than it's ever been. So that just kind of worked out for me. I was still going to do some AP test prep, but I really felt like I'd prepared my students pretty well already. So I'm not so panicked. Maybe I should be. Maybe like all my students who are in this room right now are like, she's nuts. We're terrified. But I don't know. I feel pretty good about it. I think they'll do really well.
So can you tell me what the AP literature exam looked like before these changes and now what it looks like after?
Yeah, so before it was a 3-hour exam. Part one was an hour and it was multiple choice. And then it was 2 hours where they wrote 3 essays. A Q1, question one, which was poetry over a poem. And then a Q2, which was over a prose passage. And then Q3, which was open-ended, where they would pick a novel or a play of literary merit and write an essay about it. Now it is a 45-minute test, and we don't know all the details. We should know more April 3rd. We do know that there's no multiple choice, probably because that would be a lot easier to like cheat on, and then so it's writing. And I'm guessing it's going to be one essay. I don't know that for a fact. They might do some sort of strange, short answer thing that's unprecedented. But the people on my AP Lit Facebook page are speculating that it'll probably be an essay. I don't know which one, if it'll be Q1, 2, or 3.
Great. So you mentioned how you already have prepared your students pretty well with having 2 mock exams. Are you planning on doing any more AP test prep with them, and how are you adapting it with these changes?
Yes. So at minimum, I am assigning 2 more timed right tests that, of course, now are like kind of optional. Students don't have to do them, but I hope they will. And they're over the last 2 things we've read. The novel, Their Eyes Were Watching God. And then after our Shakespeare unit, one of my classes is doing Othello and one of my classes is doing Macbeth. And they'll have an opportunity to write about that as well. And so that will help, especially if the test ends up being question 3, which is my hope. I think students would feel the most prepared for that. But if it's a Q1 or a Q2, I do have plans to do extra little, let's look at past prompts from past exams. There's also like a weird AP Lit YouTube channel. I guess there's a channel for every single subject. And so I've been sharing those videos on my classroom page. I don't know if anyone is watching them, but they're there if students choose, to have some extra, practice. So.
Have you been getting any directions from AP about how to handle this? And are there any resources that they're providing to you and students throughout this transition?
And actually, Sammy, I was just going to jump in real quick. Mr. Ellis was able to join us too, so we can incorporate him into some of the questions.
Oh, great. Hi, Mr. Ellis.
Hello.
We're talking about the AP exams for your individual classes and some things you've done to transition. So could you tell me a bit about what the exam looked like for your calculus classes and how that will look like now?
Well, actually, I'm quite anxious to see. I know they're going to release more information for us on April 3rd, this Friday. All we know right now is they said it's all FRQs, and for calculus, that's not really a lot of guidance. We have 6 FRQs every year, and I'm assuming that they'll probably cut that down to 3 since the time's half as long as we normally have. But I'll be very curious to see if that's going to be 3 full multi-part FRQs like always, or if they're going to do something weird like, I don't know, like 12 little mini FRQs or something. I don't know what it's going to look like. So I'm very anxious to get some more details from them. They have cut down our topics quite a bit for each calc. So Calc AB, we've been working on a chapter 7 unit for a long time, and they've cut that all out. For BC Calc, we got done with the big unit and they've cut that all out. So we have just a little bit of stuff left to go. And so again, I'm kind of anxious to see if there's any more guidance on what exactly to expect. But we'll get the kids ready no matter what, right?
So how concerned are you about preparing your students for the exam?
I think in the years past, I have one of the easier AP subjects, to be perfectly honest. I know calculus, woo, right? But we have a lot of time. And so we've had a lot of practice over the years, getting kids ready, doing FRQs. And you can kind of attest to that. I know you've kind of seen what we've done in the past. And I think we're just going to keep doing the same thing. I have millions of questions that we'll just kind of keep going over. And we're just going to kind of trudge forward and hope for the best.
Have you gotten any directions from AP, and are there any online resources available for students to help prepare for the exam?
Kind of like Ms. Johnson was saying a while ago, there's some interesting online stuff, some YouTube channels. I haven't checked out a ton of that yet. Again, I was kind of waiting until April 3rd, but there's nothing in particular they've given us for AP, for calculus. So we'll see.
And then, so for both of you, are you worried at all about there being a gap in your students' learning for going on to college, or from students who are going to have your classes next year? Are you worried about them being prepared at all for those courses?
Maybe I should be, but I'm not. I don't know. I just feel like we learn all the time, if that makes sense. And I feel like just living through such a strange experience as this is kind of a learning experience. And I think that a lot of students are probably just shifting into a different kind of learning right now, where they're able to pursue things that they're interested in that they may not usually have time for, and maybe more self-reflection. I don't know. I feel like while I do think formal education is obviously extremely important, I sometimes think we can think it's everything, and there's so much to life. So I feel okay.
I think my biggest concern at this point is exactly what you said, just getting them ready for whatever's coming. I completely understand, since this has shifted people's plans, like, if they choose not to take the AP exam this year, I still want to get them ready for whatever's coming next year. So I'm not really going to do much different. I think it's, like you said, it's going to be kind of a different delivery method, but I think students have just as much opportunity to take from it what they still want to take from it.
So are you all collaborating with other AP teachers to figure out how to tackle this new challenge, or through your anxieties about things?
I belong to an AP Lit Facebook group that I talk about a lot. And so we share a lot of tips and ideas with each other. And that's been really helpful, just to kind of see what other people are doing. But largely, I just kind of came up with my own system. I did poll my classes and saw what they were most interested in doing. And then I made a schedule based on that. And we'll see how it goes. Hopefully it'll go well.
I'm just kind of making it up as I go.
So this is just more personal, but how have you all been doing throughout all of quarantine, and are there any new things you all have been trying?
Well, I've read more math books than I usually do. Done more puzzles online. I have like a geometry Twitter that I follow, and I do all sorts of interesting, weird things with them. But just having time with the family, with the cats, it's actually been really nice. I try to go with the through struggle. We can get through this and have fun with it still.
Yeah. I was telling a class earlier today that other than feeling just absolute, like, these bouts of like panic and terror, it's been lovely, so it's weird. I'm like sometimes really scared because I'm kind of an anxious person, but for the most part, I'm so fortunate. And I know that, like, I really like my husband, so it's nice to spend a lot of time with him, and I really like our dogs, and we have enough food, we have everything we need. And I know that's not the case for everybody. And I try to go for a walk every day, get outside, and I'm trying to write more than, use my time really well, since I love to write. But sometimes I'm a little too anxious to feel like I'm doing that. I don't think I'm going to be writing King Lear during this quarantine as Shakespeare.
I was waiting for that quarantine poetry from you. When is that going to drop?
I wrote one poem. I think it's okay. Oh, we've got, see, here's a dog. A dog and a husband.
Well, thank you all so much for hopping on. Is there anything else you'd like to tell your students or any of the other teachers or fellow Lawrence High community members?
Just really happy we're still having class, because at first I thought it might just be over and I would never see you again, and I was really sad. So
I agree. I think it's the personal connections that I'm missing the most. The seniors in particular. I know it's hard for them, and it's hard for us knowing that we're going different ways, and we didn't get that closure that we wanted.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you so much for hopping on. We would greatly appreciate it.